Okay, so welcome to the 420 Race Team Info Night for the fall. Before I let John get going with the presentation for tonight, we just finished our high school tryouts, day 2 of high school tryouts, and we have Chris and Jack here who are going to be with your 420 intro class, which I know a number of you guys are here. So I just wanted them to kind of be able to say hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be coaching the intro course. It's all racing nice and fast.
Yep, I would like to do that. It should be a fun class, and we'll get it going pretty soon here.
Awesome. Perfect. So for those that are new to the intro class, this is Chris and Jack, and you're going to see them all at the high school practice as well. And I am going to be manning the chat while John gets going.
Sure. Well, thank you, Molly, for that, and Chris and Jack. Thanks for coming in right after practice. So I'm really excited to start off with the 420 team. I know some of you, probably not all of you, but obviously excited to meet all of you throughout the season. I have been coaching at PY for a few years now, mainly with the Opti group. Mainly with the Opti group, and as well as some of the 420 group as well too. So I'm excited to be kind of going full board this fall with the 420 group. Tonight I'm kind of presenting what I think our goals should be for the fall, what my expectations are of you, and what your expectations of should be of me. Going through that, and we're going to go through our practice plan for the fall as we go. It'd be great if we go through the presentation. I will go through it fairly quickly. I know people have school and so on. And we wait for questions at the end. Obviously, Molly, as she's told you before, is manning the chat and can answer a lot of kind of the logistical questions and so on. Those should really go to her. And before we get started, a few things about me, for those of you who don't know me. I have been a full-time or professional coach for a little over 20 years. It is not my full-time profession right now. I work as an engineer. This is actually my office. So I have a day job that I do that. I also have another job where I work for Zim Sailing and West Coast Sailing as a consultant as well, and help them design the 420 and other boats and other products that they have. So I wear a few different hats. Sailing and coaching is really my release. I'm really excited to do it and be on the water. Why wouldn't you? Molly and I have 2 kids, a 4- and 6-year-old, so we are very busy with them as well. My sailing background is I grew up sailing the Club 420 back in New England. I'm from the Boston area, or really Cape Cod. So I grew up sailing at all those kind of New England events throughout my whole, youth and sailing career. Did sailing in college, did a bunch of sailing after college as well. So I'm excited to give my experience to all of you. All right, we'll get started here. Oops. All right, just a few things. These are kind of the slides that you see at pretty much all of these info nights, and I'm sure a bunch of you have been to a lot of these. But just as a reminder of kind of what our mission is, and we are a community program, and these are things that we these are really things that we value, even at the very top end of the program, which is the Club 420 race team is. We need to make sure we continue to look back at the big values of the PYSF mission statement. And the big thing of cultivating values of character, community, and competitiveness are the big things here, as you can see on this slide. These are things that we'll be talking about a lot throughout the season, and making sure that we are fulfilling those values at PYSF, right, as we go. Coaches. So for the coaches for this year, Renee, I know you guys have had her this last year, maybe the last couple of years, will be with us as well. She will be, I think, only at 1 or 2 practices, and will be most likely at most of the regattas, if not all the regattas, helping out coaching. So you'll see her as well. But you'll mainly have me coaching for all the practices, as well as some other coaches will be coming in to help out too. And we're excited to have people come in and help out as we go through the season. But I'll be kind of the mainstay at all the practices this year. Big thing to think about through the pathway of PYSF. You can see that the 420 travel team is kind of at the end of the pathway, or kind of at the top of the pathway, however you want to look at it. I think this is really important to recognize, because we have a duty as the top of this pathway to look back and help the people that are behind us, and making sure that we're good leaders through PYSF, and putting out and showing the good values of PYSF to all the younger players that are coming up. And I'm sure a lot of you have been through the program, maybe even through Learn to Sail all the way up to now. Could think about older PYSF sailors that you looked up to and that you still think about and emulate. And I think that's something that you all should think of as your responsibility as a 420 travel team player, to make sure that you are also being someone that can be looked up to as well. Quick slide here. I stole this from Hannah. But these are some things to think about as we get into the fall season. Fall is wonderful around here. Obviously very hot right now, but at some point it will get colder. And when we do, we want to make sure we're wearing the appropriate gear. Wearing the appropriate gear is your responsibility as a player, to make sure you have the stuff that you need. If you have questions about that, please ask any of us. We're happy to suggest what to get and where to get it. We want to make sure that we have the proper gear, because we want to be on the water safely, but obviously be on the water productive. Be as productive as we can for as long as we can on the water. All right, now let's get into our things. So the team expectations that go for both the coaches and the players. Any coach that kind of comes into the program, as well as myself, of course, and then all of you as the players on the team. These are the general expectations that I have for both myself and for you. I call it OB1. First one is to be open-minded every day. Second one is to be where your feet are. So if you come to practice, we want you focused and be at practice from that, not only physically, but mentally as well. And we work as one team. Right? We'll talk about these things a little bit more. So what do I mean by open-minded? Well, here are some examples of this. The big thing that I believe in is we want to learn from every source possible. The greatest thing about sailing is that you're always learning. Even the greatest sailors that you could think of, any Sailing World magazine that you open up to, any great sailor that you can think of out there is constantly and always learning. That's what makes them at the top of their game. And you can look at any sport, any athlete does the same thing. So sailing is no exception to that. So making sure that you're learning from every source. And this should be not only coaches, but players that you look up to, that are going a little bit faster than you or a little better than you at practice that day. Obviously look up to them. But really important to make sure we're looking at players that we think that are new, that maybe this program is new to them, or they're new to the 420 race team. They come in with no preconceived ideas. They could look at things in a fresh new angle. So making sure that we're looking at all sources possible to improve as we go through the season. Big thing I believe is that the ownership of your development rests on you as a player. Your success, right, through all of it is because of you and how hard you work, right? The big things I believe in is trying, experiment, fail. The only way to learn is to fail, 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 right? As long as you fail and you learn from that failure, you will grow, not only as an athlete, but as a person as well. So I'm a huge believer in going out there, doing it, trying, and then breaking down what we have failed on and be able to become better as we go through. That is going to be the big things that we're focusing on, right, this season. Don't be afraid to look foolish, right? Don't be afraid to be embarrassed, to flip over, whatever else it is. We're not going to make fun of you. That's not the way it is. It's going to be you trying and putting yourself out there is what you're going to be rewarded for. I think that's something that we want to continue to push as much as possible. Don't be afraid to look foolish. For me as a coach and for the other coaches coming in, we want to make sure that we're trying new things. I've coached for over 20 years. I have drills and things that I always go to, things that I really enjoy. I know that works for me, but I need to make sure that I'm open-minded to try new things, right? Especially suggestions from you all saying, hey, I'd rather try it this way, or I'd rather look at it this way, or can you help me with this? I need to make sure that I'm open-minded to try new things as we go. Big thing for me is that I don't think there's any ego in coaching, right? Your success is your success, right? And your success is going to be totally driven by your work, your hard work every day, your drive, and that's what should be rewarded. There's no reflection to me. Your success will not be attached to me at all. That's something I'm here to provide, guide, provide opportunities, guide you as we go. But overall, everything is because of you, right? From that. The big thing for me that I need to do is make sure I listen first, right? So making sure that something happens or you guys come with me for a concern, to make sure I'm listening first and then, you know, putting in my opinion or my thoughts on it first. So my goal is to always listen first. The other thing that I really focus on is explaining why. I was lucky enough to be coaching. My first coaching job full time was at Chicago Yacht Club, and I love telling the story because it meant a lot to me. Is when I was coaching there, I thought, you know, I was becoming this big shot coach. I was all excited for myself, and we had an incredible sailor that you might recognize the name, Kenny Reed. He's the CEO of North Sails right now. But he has also won many world championships, America's Cup, and so on all the way through. And he came to talk to a bunch of sailors that I was coaching. And one of the biggest things that he said that really stuck with me was that when he was a sailor, his coaches would always tell him, go right, go left, do this, do that, but would never really explain why. And he realized really quickly, if he wanted to be a great sailor himself, he really needed to know why things worked. Why do I pull the main in right now? Why do I add more Cunningham? Why do I need more vang? Why should I go right in this direction? You know, these are the things that he wanted to know. So I want to make sure that I'm doing my job as a coach of explaining why. This might not happen immediately. You know, we're on the water, it's windy, and I want you to try something or do something. I might not be able to explain why right away, but my goal is that when we come in, we can sit down and explain it. Why I had you do that? Why maybe it worked, maybe it didn't work, but I want to make sure that I'm explaining the why all the time. The big thing for me, especially nowadays, is be where your feet are. So we want to make sure when you show up to practice, the rest of the world melts away. You are literally sailing away from all your troubles and concerns when you come to practice. So it's very easy for me to say, very hard to do in practice. But this is something we're going to do together as a team. I have a full-time job that I'm sure I'm going to carry in with me to practice, and I'm going to do everything I can when I come out of my car and I show up to PYSF that I'm there for PYSF, there for you guys, there for practicing, and that's it. And it's a good thing for us all to practice, to breathe, be able to let everything melt away, and focus on where we are at that moment. This is really important when we want to focus on improving our skills and focus on the fundamentals that we're going to talk about tonight. We need to make sure that we can actually be present, not just be there. So we're going to focus a lot on being present. For that reason, there'll be no phones at practice. So bring your phone to practice, leave it in your bag. We can put it in the office if you want. You can charge it in the office if you want. Do whatever, but there'll be no phones at practice when we have briefings, right? Or debriefings at the end of the day. The phones have to go away. If you're used to taking notes on your phone, sorry, no phones at practice. Bring notebooks. Notebooks will be required for everybody at practice to come through. We're going old school, writing things down in your notebook and keeping it as a journal and as a way to be able to really improve our sailing and pull information together as we go through. So notebooks are going to be required. The sailors that have been with me through the Opti days know that I'm always required notebooks as we go through. I want to be specific about the notebooks. Notebooks should be not only the notebook itself, but you need something to write with. So every day you should show up with a notebook, at least 2 pencils or 2 pens or one of each, you can choose. And the notebook and pencils have to be in some sort of waterproof bag together. A Ziploc bag, watertight bag, whatever you want to do, it's up to you, but it needs to be in a waterproof bag. Because invariably, you put your notebook in your sailing bag, you put your wet sailing gear on top, and then your notebook is ruined. So we want to make sure 2 pens, 2 pencils, your notebook in a Ziploc bag, and that's what it means by having a notebook every day at practice. The last one is as one. And we're going to define this together as we go through the fall. right? We want to come up with things together that we can make sure that we're working as a group and working as a team and how we share information. You will see as an example that when we go outside and we do a lot of speed work, we're going to come in and share all our settings and work together to find out what the fastest setup would be, right? And how we can set up our boat to make it even faster and share all that information. Right? We'll do things with, we all have to launch at the same time, help each other with our dollies, help each other with our boats, right? As we're unloading and loading boats of regattas, these are things that can take a long time, but shouldn't, right? Not if we work together and everybody's there and present to do that. So these are the things that we will work on this season. Let's get into our practice plan and what our goals are for the fall. My simple goal, and it's a very broad goal because I think the ability level of this group is probably a little bit all over the map, but our goal for the fall is to develop a fundamental base. There's going to be some things that we are going to focus on throughout the season to really develop and understand the why of all these skills. And that's going to be our focus here. I am not focusing on regatta results, right? That's not what we're concerned about at the moment. Right now is we want to have all the skills. If we develop the skills, the fundamental skills that we need, we understand how things function in the boat and how they work, we make sure our boat is in top-notch shape to be able to do that, then we will find success, right, in terms of results in the race course. So those are the way we're going to approach practice. Practice is going to be a phased development plan. So you can say, I even put dates out there. I like to have a plan and be organized as much as possible. So this is how I think of things as in phases. Our first phase here, the first 2 days of practice, we're going to focus on boat setup and how we're going to practice, right? How you should be arriving at practice, how we're going to get our boats ready, what we should be doing right away, what a practice will look like. Because again, a lot of that responsibility will be on you to be able to do that. I spent all day on Monday working on the boats, and I will say honestly, they're in really bad shape in terms of their systems and how the boats are set up. We are going to be standardizing all of that starting on Sunday. We're going to standardize our systems. We're going to standardize our jib sheets, our vangs, our Cunninghams. We're going to be doing it the same so then we can talk to each other the same way. So we know that everybody, you know, boat A and boat B have the same systems, so they can share their information together and be able to grow together as a team, right? And so those are the big things that we're going to do this fall, is to kind of bring everything down to a fundamental base and get everything standardized and have boats that function the way they should going through that. So we will be doing boat work this fall. We'll be doing boat work. As long as I'm coaching the 420 program, you will be doing boat work and making sure the boats are functioning well. Right, it's a big part of being successful and most importantly safe on the water. We'll do our boat setup and practice setup. Then we go to upwind fundamentals. We then move into our first regatta. There is a regatta beforehand. I know just a few veterans are going down to the PCCs in Southern California, which is awesome. I didn't include that in the overall plan because it's a small portion of our team. Then we move into downwind fundamentals, go into our second regatta, and then we're going to focus on some racing fundamentals. I know we have a third regatta as well. For some reason, I put the date on. Our practice setup this year is going to be Saturday practice. We're going to be going outside 100 to 99% of the time. On Saturdays, we'll be going outside and we'll be speed focused. Obviously, when we're doing upwind fundamentals, we're going to be going upwind a lot. Downwind fundamentals, we're going to go downwind a lot. We will go upwind and downwind when we're working on something else as well, but those are going to be our big focuses for those practices. So Saturdays will be, sorry, I said Saturdays, will be Sundays. I wrote that wrong. There'll be Sunday practices. Will be outside and speed focused. Wednesday practice will be inside and it'll be boat handling focused and starting focused. So when we have a smaller area of water, we're going to focus a lot on boat handling this fall. Both upwind and downwind, focus a lot of boat handling on starting and doing starting workers itself too. So we're going to be doing a lot of that stuff and breaking down those skills as much as possible. I love boat handling. I came from coaching college for years and years, and boat handling and starting meant pretty much everything. So those are the things that I love to coach the most. So we'll be doing that a lot. And again, on Wednesday practices, that will be the focus. Sorry, the slide is wrong. That's not Saturday. That's Sunday practice for outside and speed focused. Our fundamental base, right, the BSs, what are we going to be working on here? This is boat handling, speed, starting, boat setup. This is going to be our goals for the fall to really focus on. We're not going to spend a lot of time on tactics this fall. We're not going to focus a lot of time on strategy or anything else. We're going to focus on getting our boats right, getting our boats set up well, and being able to execute all the boat handling and the speed that we need to. So when we move into the spring as a continuation on, we're ready to do more racing from there. So these are our goals going into it. I want to put in a couple of reminders here. I believe this is my last slide yet. I want to bring in a couple of reminders that we want to make sure that we're bringing to our first practice. Right? So I want to bring it back here to the beginning, to our expectations here, focusing on OB1. When we come up to our first practice, we want to come in and be open-minded. We want to make sure we're there at PY when we show up. And we're focused on PY as we go through there. And we're focused on our team. And we're working together as one team. Right? So these are the things that's the mindset that we want to approach practice with and be excited with. I will tell you some things from me is that I want you, when we have set a time to rig and get on the water, I want you to rig and get on the water in that time frame. Right? Our rigging time and our de-rigging time, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to hang out, chit chat, or anything else because we just don't have that time. Right? We have very little practices to be able to get through the season, and our time frame is tight because you guys need to get back to schoolwork and activities and everything else that you need to do. So when we're here and we're at PY, we need to be focusing on the timing that the coaches are giving you and focusing on getting your boat rigged, ready properly, right? And then on the water as efficiently as possible. So our practices will be focused more on efficiency rather than kind of hanging out and chit-chatting, right, as we go. Okay? So you'll notice that rigging times and de-rigging times will get smaller as the season goes on because we'll expect more from you too. The other things that we're going to do, I'm a big believer in kind of bringing things in for the community, for our group. So I'll be requiring everybody to show up to practice. You will need to get into practice on Sunday. You will need to bring in one baler each, right, that we'll share. We'll be able to share it out for all the boats, but everybody needs to bring a baler. Everybody needs to bring a toothbrush. Let me be specific. A toothbrush that is not used. We want a new toothbrush. That's disgusting. So bring in a new toothbrush with you. Those we're going to use for our spinnakers. So everybody needs to bring in one toothbrush and one baler to practice. And there'll be times during the season when we'll call out and say, okay, we need to bring a baler and a toothbrush so we can plus up our pile of stuff that we have for the team. So everybody needs to bring that for the first practice. And of course, you need to bring your notebook, which includes the notebook, 2 writing utensils, and some sort of waterproofing for all of that can stay in. Please also put your name on your notebook as well. So that is my kind of overview of practice for the fall and kind of what our expectations are, how I'm breaking down practice and what we're going to be focusing on those practices. I will do my best to be able to communicate any changes or anything else, obviously through the chat. That'll be our primary source of communication for that, as well as in person. We will be focused a lot on making sure that we are building these fundamentals, so I'll expect you to take a lot of notes, right, as we go through. I will send out to you other resources as well. I have a PYSF Google Drive that I'm building up with a lot of different materials. So as you go through the season and you have some extra time to go through that, there'll be a resource there for you to go into and look at. I will get all the folders labeled so you know where to go for boat handling or starting or strategy or tactics or whatever else. It will be all organized in there and be there for you guys to access. It'll also be there for the wintertime when practice ends in the fall and we've got some extra time in the wintertime, especially when school's out. That's a good time to go back to that folder and look at those things. The folder will also be a place where we upload videos. So I'll put a lot of videos in the chat too. I believe in videos as a really useful tool. So we'll do some of those in the chat, but also you'll have some in those folders too. especially really good examples of something, what I call like our gold standard, will be in those folders too, for you guys to access and use. So I want to make sure that I'm providing you all with as much opportunity and as much access to information as possible. It is up to you as players on the team to take advantage of that. The more you take advantage of it, I think you'll find the more success you'll find on the race course. The less, you'll have probably less success as we go. So it'll be out there for you guys to take advantage as we go. All right. Now with that, I think, again, if there's any logistical questions about practice itself, please make sure that you're writing in the chat to Molly. I'll open it up here for questions in 1 second, but there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Wednesdays, I will do my absolute best to get practice done on time, so that we're done on time and everybody's released and ready to go. I know there's a big crunch to go to school and do work and so on, so I want to make sure that I respect that as much as possible. So Wednesdays, I will do my best to do that. There'll be some things because we play a sport that's dependent on Mother Nature that will be out of our control, and I will try to update the chats as much as possible if that happens, for us to deal with it. If we're delayed for something that was out of our control, I will let you know. But I'll try to do our best to be updating that on Wednesdays. On Sundays, I'll be probably pushing practice as much as possible. So be prepared for a full day on Sunday, and we might be late a little bit on Sunday. But I'm going to focus on really being on time on Wednesdays for that. Okay. With that, I think I know Renee was going to be late. Renee, it looks like you're on. Did you want to say a few words?
He is in the middle
Can you
of
hear me?
driving. I can see.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hey, Renee.
I'm a little distracted because I'm driving, but hi everybody. Sorry I couldn't be on the full call, and thank you, John, for putting together the presentation. And I agree wholeheartedly with everything you're saying, and I'm just looking forward to a nice organized season. And I know we have a lot of new faces, which is exciting, and I'm looking forward to helping you all improve and get you up to speed with some of our other teammates. And yeah, I will see you guys at the first practice on the 11th, I believe.
Perfect.
Yes. So this slide, I know there were some people pointing out in the chat about Saturdays and Wednesdays and such. So your 420 practices are on Sundays and Wednesdays. And the dates are all correct in the Google Calendar that's on our website, as well as on the website listed under your class. We do skip weekend practices when we have a regatta that either you're already attending, so you're sailing Saturday and Sunday at the regatta, and or on days when we are hosting an event and we can't physically have practice in addition. In the chat, I just put the Sign Up Genius link. So the events, every event that we are sailing in this season is on that link. So there's Opti stuff on there, there's high school regattas on there, and there's obviously the 420 regattas. The easiest way for all of us to stay organized is to have you guys sign up on the Sign Up Genius. When you know that you're like, hey, look, there's this event. I know I want to go to it. Whoa, there's this brand new team, and I don't know if I have a partner. Not to worry. If you put your name on this Sign Up Genius, and especially if you go through your calendar now and figure out when you're available, that will make John and Renee's life much easier, because then they can plan out, great, here's what the season looks like. There's phase 1 and phase 2, and there's fall dinghy, and they can start to put together pairs that make sense, that we know you're going to be together in the long haul for the season and hopefully going forward, but also that you're just available and you're not taking an ACT or you have work that day or whatever it might be. For those intermediate folks that are on the call, I would assume that you won't be going to these regattas unless you hear differently at practice. So the size of our sailors, our groups, we have 24 currently on our race team, and I believe we're at, I should know quicker than this, but I think we're at 15 or so on the intermediate. And we physically at PYSF have 6 race boats to use. So if you do the math, that does not add up. And so the race team, there are a bunch of people that own their own boats, which is fantastic. But that's something to sort of start thinking about going forward. Looking at when we have a big West Coast event and there's new boats out here, buying a charter boat, being able to ship out a whole bunch of boats at once, that type of thing. Nothing for you to think about tonight, but just in the long run, start thinking about, okay, my kid's really loving this, really wants to keep sailing. Are you thinking about getting a boat, this summer or going into the next year? Let's say you're in intermediate and you're like, oh, I'm really amped and I really want to be on the race team and I really want to go to this regatta. Feel free to put your name on there. But just realize that we are going to be putting boats together with race team members first. Okay. And then obviously, almost all of our 420 race team this season is also doing high school sailing. And so when you start to look at your calendar, you're going to have a lot of racing opportunities. And so coming to high school practice and going to high school regattas as well is a great way to practice all of the bells and whistles, the nitty gritty of going around marks with a bunch of boats at all different speeds and all different abilities. So you will not be missing out on racing practice in any way.
Ollie, I just want to reinforce kind of what you're saying about Sign Up Genius. And currently, John and I were working on pairing people up, but that is a huge help to us if everyone can let us know what events they plan to be at this year. Because if we pair people up that aren't going to be at the same event, it doesn't really make sense. But also on the same thing with pairs is if there's someone that you want to sail with that you feel strongly about or you've sailed with before, like let us know. Or if maybe you feel like you need to switch it up, like we want an open line of communication with you guys. Talk to us about it. Advocate for yourselves. We're happy to listen to you on that. And I suggest doing that sooner rather than later. And then the other thing would be to the parents with the Sign Up Genius, it takes a village to get to these events, a lot of trailers. So we need you guys to sign up on there as well and let us know where you can help and when you can. And it's the only way we can get to these events with parent help. So communicate with us about where you can lend a hand.
For sure. There are a bunch of new sailors, obviously, on the race team, but also a lot of new parents that have not either learned to tow or towed before. And I want you all to realize that you are not alone. There are so many of you. We are going to run, we have a lot in the Opti group as well, and high school group. We are going to run a couple of sort of like towing 101 classes this season. Some people love to do it by themselves, and it's easier on our end if we can get a big group together. And some people like to have the sort of lessons with me or one of the coaches, and it takes about 30 minutes and they feel great and they're good to go. And some people like to do it 3 or 4 times before they feel comfortable enough to take a motorboat or a sailboat to an event. We are happy to accommodate whatever makes you comfortable. And I can't stress enough that I'd say probably 80% of our parents have never sailed before, never towed before. But when we go to like a bays event, we take roughly 10 to 12 trailers. And in the perfect world, if we're taking 12 trailers, that means we have 24 parents that are going to help us, right? Half take them there and the other half bring them back. And so the more people we can have on the list that are comfortable and able to tow trailers, the better. So if you're sitting at home going, oh my gosh, I hope she doesn't, call me out and ask me to tow, I will at some point. So get yourself signed up when we start to put out the list of like, here's a day that we're all going to come down and practice. And it's kind of like your kids jumping into the sailboats. It's super scary the first time they do it. And we are there to get you comfortable and walk you through it. Anybody have any questions? I love it. That's a good sign. Well, I'm super excited for the season to start. We just we're about to finish up our high school tryouts this week, and then everything gets going full speed. Saturday is our first real, Opti race team, and then Sunday our 420 race team practice, and then we're going full steam ahead. So I do have a question to everyone. What time does Wednesday practice begin? Wednesday practice for the race team is at 3:30. So 3:30 to 6:30, all of our afternoon practices are the same. And just like any other afternoon practice where maybe you arrive at 3:45 or 4, that's something that John is going to figure out, after the maybe second Wednesday of the routine of, yep, this group always shows up around 4. This group's always there at 3:30. And that also is going to help Renee and John put together kind of the groupings and pairings for the day. So I am going to send out this recording later tonight or tomorrow morning once I get it all set and sent back to me. And feel free to reach out to John or to Renee. I am going to, hopefully you guys have all gotten yourselves onto the 420 parent chat if you're the parents. And we also have a race team chat and an intermediate chat for all of you guys. So sailors can talk with the coaches and parents can talk as well. So please make sure you're reaching out to the coaches. Make sure you communicate. Big part, like Renee said, self-advocacy. We are all about teaching life skills here. And that is something that all of us can always be better at, but we're hopefully helping the kids do that now so that they're well practiced at it by the time they're leaving home and going to college. So I look forward to seeing all of you guys either at the high school info night tomorrow night or at your next 420 practice. Have a good evening.
Thank you.